From the 30th of the 12th month of 1438, Cronzon, Volume 2. By Martinet Press, provoked these reactions. Cronzon 2 is bigger than Cronzon Volume 1, Issue 1 from Martinet Press, but is bigger, better. This edition has the symbol of this periodical in black on the front and gray on the back of this white volume. Does that mean it is of white magic? The contents of this magical triangle and the mace ball in the space marked series include another editorial forward. The art of Sergei Kramer, The Aeon of Dark Empathy by Asha Shedim, The Art of Laurent Brown, Beholder of the Eye by Orlog Volksgeist, Duan Morathi by A.A. Moraine, The Art of Erica Frival, The Lion's Paw by Shadow, Lara's Torment by Aubrey Wood, Basnight, The Art of Joel Frafenson, The End of Hate in the Love of the Chaos, Archaos, Office by Matthew Whitman, Aberrations of a Dragon by Ray's Books, The Leech, Undeath and the Nature of Transfiguration by Somnus Dreadwood, The Nature of Brazilian Quimbanda by Danila Capini, and the translated by Soror Carolina Malvezi and Frater Shadow. The Lion's Roar, The Bhakti Practice in the Sinister Way by Ashtaroth Cognatus, VLF Laboratories, Q309, Gnosis in Action by Ayan Mi Yesh, The Art of Crude Azathoth, The Astral Terrors of the Black Devils, The Art of Coat Leku, The Saturnine Cult by Ying Chao, an example of Sarah Rex Occult Comics. Once a selection of text for a Bible or anthology is made, the ordering and editing usually follows. To get the message of such a text out, it has to be available and affordable. People of alternative traditions show their authenticity in their goals for the message when they do not sell their scripture to make as much money as possible for minimal effort. The texts are to fill the void and provoke others to fill the void and the dark spiritual reality in it and the unseen here. Sergei Kramer, 666, includes his 6 numbered pieces that are macabre Russian Orthodox-like paintings. Cyrillic is not a language I can read, and my mind initially wandered to the tarot themes for the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, and the Lovers. The haloed and winged zombie sticks out its tongue, holding a book between 2 adverse pentagrams, while making that crossed finger gesture in the second art piece. Do you get the dual meanings of satanic text and know the intersections of the satanic trinity? In the third selection, we have a skeleton, winged and cloaked, holding a square mandala. What is your child of awareness within descent, overlapping beingness, and within perfection? The fourth piece, by Sergei Kramer, includes a shiny-eyed and winged demon supported by a staff on the left and leaning a sword over the shoulder on the left. What rules you in obscurity? How are you supported or motivated by liberalism? What sort of discrimination have you picked up from conservatism? Are your desires about a pretend that goes past your almost invisible sphere of influence? The fifth piece is about a many-fanged demon in a cloak with a star symbol on the forehead and right shoulder holding its batty child. Are you guided and adorned with the hopes of beyond this world, but connecting with fierceness to your legacy? The final piece, by Sergei Kramer, is a sixth haloed figure, but this is like some sort of metal horsewoman with full hair below the collar and a pronounced disc that is midway between a rostral, coronal, and sagittal view of the head. Does your profile show how you are reflecting on the merging of your animal, mechanical, and human sides? The Lillian Society was formed by Asha Shedim in 2013 upon a mathos of internal understanding by hardship and opposition. It was upon satanic lifestyles rather than rituals. That is a part of the Lillian Society, but acting and physical tests are of their dark occult experience. The path of intolerance held by the right-wing haters of al-Muslimin can offer insight to those who put it on like a suit that can be taken off. By such means, they gain insight towards doing away with their mental construction of reality and realizing an Azoth that propels their evolution towards becoming a Homo galactus, or new human, with a vastness of self-referral. Satan and other beings beyond this karmic world are their starting subject of meditation. The material world, with its blood and plant life, contains spiritual elements used in their sorcery. The human is a gateway, and such is also their psychic body to travel beyond where their psychic body is. The Baphomet of the Knights Templar is viewed as Satan and the Earth Mother. They are to be amoral rather than evil. But that deemed evil may be held back from or done carefully to avoid consequences that can stand in the way of their greater achievement in life. The Order of Drex is a secret order within the Lillian Society, which follows the sinister Newman and represents that beyond cause without being known in the greater Lillian Society. Their insight roles can be to gang influences upon other groups or people. If orders are to be formed, must Satanism be a solitary path? There are 4 photos from the Laurent Brown that can be interpreted as sort of a tetragrammaton. Hadau is a Scottish surname that I can't find a meaning for, but a Tao dance comes down out of darkness from the right, making me think of the letter Yud on the Tree of Life. Sambre Evile 1 shows a clasping and a covering, but the person is adorned with what may be talismans that are understood and used, rather than as mere amulets of different paths draped on an eclectic person. Sambre Evile 4 is like the second, but more obscured and darkened, and the female grounds her dark energy. Finally, the face is known, but blurred in the final manifestation with a grace maintaining playfulness. Orlog Volksgeist starts Beholder of the Eye by addressing the group with racial or other limited understanding of what it means to be Viking or Asir. The Germanic peoples had their Babylanden who would dye their hair yellow to match that ideal. Racism related more to the neo-pagan movement than the ancient views. The Vanir were probably Devonized individuals or concepts from Northern Europe, but the Aesir were said to be from Turkey and into Asia, and even partially from northwestern Africa. The Scandinavian are even partially from northwestern Africa. Oh, northeastern Africa. Okay, that makes more sense. The Scandinavians are Norse, were a different sort of people than those they would travel to, rob, and fight. They had berserkers dressed in bearskins, and elf Hednars dressed in wolfskins. Not only as shamans, but psychological warfare. Rather than just for Wotan or the wise god, there were also those who put themselves to shame and broke taboos in their dark transformations. Draugur's Draumar, or the again walker's dream, is of his own dark night of the soul that left him with a vision that freed him from right-wing patriotism. A lot of interesting stories and pictures and stuff. You may want to go beyond my comments and actually see these things for themselves and see how what I have to say has some information that the other doesn't, and the other has information that I'm not saying. A. Moraine is an author I almost did not expect to find here, but his Down Marathi, or Poem of the Wise Man, is here nonetheless. It is about a widow who was left to live alone by her niece. Nature and the ritual markings took over her and her home. With blood and ritual, she made a 4-sided quartz. She connected with the crystal her dead husband was buried with after this crystal was used in forbidden magic. Finally, she became a leech or corpse in a ritual fashion. There's ideas for rituals detailed out. The art of Erica Frival here is called Feeds on Children, Punishment, Rise of the Wolf's Blood, and Satanic Shrapnel. The first has 24 candles, an Aztec deity, creatures of the night, Christian priest with snakes holding children, and a group of 8 men carrying a coffin. How did the gangs and cults of fanatical religion lead the innocent into the night and death with their mind control? The second centers around a shadow of a pointy-headed fiendish woman with a skull for a belly, 5 eyes, claws, and a fanged mouth on her lap. What does UCS, then J, then NOMUNIC, then PFI, then SKJI, then OOIRFMSC mean? How does alcohol and other drugs lead to death and depression? How do grand buildings and finery lead to confusion and a lack of productivity? How does extreme asceticism lead to being held hostage in a childish way? How is a caged fight like prison? The third collage centers on a slanted swastika of 4-letter S's. What do statecraft and priestcraft have to do with each other? How does the art of idols and churches connect to the show of strength of armies and the devastation of destruction are preparing for mass death? The final piece is of the 10-armed of a vampire carrying 8 hand mirrors with the same sigil of 8 lines forming 3 loops. How is the revolution white and black? How is the damage medical, mental, political, and of the military industrial complex? Shadow or Madame Lisifi Verge Ma Wooge, that may be a closing phrase, speaks on forbidden Caribbean and American traditions that descend from Africa under Christian oppression. The Bon Haugen Monbo was the good priestess, and vodou is Fran Gidnen, are faithful to them ancestors, instead of San Manman, are without mother, for their moral of respect to the living and dead. A bokar, or worker, was a practitioner of vodou. Vodou probably comes from Benin and Dahomey. The West may have watered down the African faiths, but they stem from traditional societies that accepted such spiritual relationships. Yoruba Orisha traditions may have been more than Christianized than at Haiti. Makaya, or leaves, sorcery, is known as Sect Rouge, the Red Sect. Traditions are feared in Haiti for their even criminal sorcery within Bizango and Santpwel are secret societies acting as spiritual police or even predators of society. Makaya likely comes from the Bantu RT Congo. The individual was known as a servitor or servant. Why should we not accept servitude to what we worship? An initiate opens up what may never be closed. Are you ready for the fire that results from the likes of Quimbanda? Is a Metet, or master of, the head, really both patron deity and a guardian spirit? Or the job are demonic entities, a different class than the Loa, or spirits? Are you ready to say the secret formulas, use veves, graven signs, and say names not known outside of certain groups? Does the unseen energy and its beings prepare you before you know it exists? The article closes with a shrine with anything from human remains to weapons to various other man-made objects in an order outside of what would typically be expected of the so-called cluttered African-based religions. The Red and Black Flame is a book with a lot of symbols, and it seems, it's the best book better than all the books combined otherwise that I've seen on the subject of Quimbanda. Then we continue from Choronzon 1 with the next 4 parts of Lara's Torment by Aubrey Wood. Last night, Max is directed by the antique dealer to a second location via message given to him in a cafe. The drunken dealer and buyer met in a warehouse in a country not favored by the CIA for tourism. Why is sexual predation and kidnapping usually far more common in America then? This purchase of the amulet would be cash only, and not only to be tried in the presence of the dealer, but to wait till the country is left by the buyer, or he would somehow know. Lara's Torment was like a glass statue edged with pewter, and an orb filled with a yellowish liquid in a clear vessel, in a sphere within it. A drop of blood upon it was said to be part of the ritual to operate it. According to the agreement, he was to leave sooner than his tickets said. Possession of Lara's Torment obsessed him. What was the liquid inside? Was it about death? What were the dark specks within? Was this on purpose? Kneeling in the nude, he stared at Lara's Torment and lost control of himself as he saw a vision of the young female he saw lead that cult's ceremony before. This amulet was not like any of its category he knew of, and it was changing him. But the time he saw the idol of her in the middle tell him to leave. But that time he saw the idol of her in the middle tell him to leave. What is going to happen? The art of Chronzon is the 7th, 13th, and 17th numbered trump cards from his Tarot of the North, which only has 65 cards and is based on the sinister tarot we see represented in the Black Book of Satan 2, Calathi. But the typical tarot deck would have Chet, the Chariot, and Cancer as the Atu 7. But here has the Sun and Shaitan as that card, with the wind blowing from the left side. As one faces, like a mosque, at the end of the staircase to a plateau. Is Shaitan directing your journey away from the masjid, or into the crevices away from the places to prostrate to God? Instead of noon, Scorpio, and death, we have the moon and Nithra are the eye and its attributes. I personally like a death trump to show some movement, or how life or beginnings start at endings, but here is just barrenness of land, mountain, plants, and the 12 or so skulls before the sigil. The 17th trump list Nameku, our wisdom bringer, and Venus instead of the typical Thadi or Hay in Thelemic decks, and Aquarius or Aries in some Thelemic decks. Its scene can be said to be like unto the sigil, but with a bat instead of a star. A mountain and trees around a peak instead of triangles, facing and connecting with an oval. Do you remain above the change, or perch yourself to learn in a detached way from the weather and scenery? In my New Age religion playlist, the eagle often was the symbol here. In this season of hate, as opposed to the coming fear of Samhain, hope of Imbolc, and love of Beltane, Matthew Whiteman speaks of how loving the Kanos, our chaos, Office, new or ancient snake, can be a way to end hate. Whatever the form, Satan by any name is used to disturb, and those who understand the dimensions of their opposition can fulfill it rather than it being merely a weakness. Is our adversarial approach authentically for sin, or among being childish or lacking self-mastery? You know, because sin comes from the ancient Egyptian sin, which means mistake. Is our purpose in the dark occult of shells and shadows of the earth and underworld, or of a destructive spirit? We can be for others without being a sociopath. We can be for ourselves without being a psychopath. A personal will to go beyond our personal conditions and the philosophy to bring us there is part of what is needed. But this needs to be progressive rather than sectarian and authoritarian adherence to mere traditions, are trying to match our feelings with whether or not we did well. Guilt and shame are responses to a lack of virtue rather than virtues in themselves. Who, what, where, when, why, and how do we hate? Does it control us, or do we control it? We can't escape the fact that we exist in the presence and influences of priestcraft and statecraft, but we neither have to accept that nor take part. Going outside of the mainstream faiths will not liberate us, because those faiths are upon the same psychological structures and include just different language for the same aspects of those paths. It takes discipline to be different, whether by affirming more or denying more. Kanos, or chaos, Office, is a notion of a vehicle of separation, change, opposition, and hate for the perfect order creation was supposedly on. Differences on all levels can lead to appreciation and reconciliation. We do not project our psychiatric issues upon divinity. That happens to be the one big truth of Freudian psychological accusations against religion. We can or may experience the holy and the unholy in the revelation, in the purer, higher self-sacrifice, into a realm full of personal meaning where feelings are all connected and fulfilling of the freedoms we are capable of. Ray's books left us with a 7-part poem called Apparitions of a Dragon. The most interesting thing about Sarah Week's installment of Occult Comics is a sigillum around a hashtag. Below the intersecting lines, and in the center, is 3 descending rows of 3 dots each, one angled left, another at the same height and angled right, and 1 row straight down. Above the intersection is like the dots of the 5 sides of a dice. Of the 5 side. Of the 5 side. Okay. Like the dots of the 5 side of a dice, with 2 more straight up in center row. In the center square is in the shape of the letter U, but with a backwards number 2, upside down, and curvy M, an open-ended letter B, and topped with letter Y on the right side. What does that mean or do? The 3 squares of the comic is a joke about not being sure about the Cronzon periodical and its name, which John Dee and Edward Kelly called Cronzon. Enjoyer of felicity and offender in the sight of God, Merritt Casaubon identifies as Cronzon, the true name of that mighty devil, on page 92 of A True Relation of Dr. John Dee and His Actions with Spirits. And Aleister Crowley called it Cronzon, the demon of dispersion, of the 10th Enochian author, and blank 11 squares on the great tablet of earth. So I bid you adieu with Zazas, Zazas, Na Satanada Zaz As. Oh, Zazas. Okay. And so we arrive at different spellings, right? We have Coronzon, and then we have Coronzon, and then we have Choronzon, and we can have a further as Choronzom. Zazas, na satanada zas. Zazas, na satanada zas. Zazas, na satanada zas. I jumbled that a bit, but, remember, these are just my responses and interpretations. You may want to see for yourself how they compare with the original and all that sort of stuff. Zazas, na satanada zas.